What's up, guys? It's Carly with FasciNATIVE English, where if you are finally ready to take your English to another level and to begin speaking English like a native English speaker, then you've come to the right place. So let's get into it. What's up, guys? I have another phrase for you all today, and today's phrase is give or take. Give or take, all right? Give or take. And this just means approximate or approximately, all right? Give or take means approximate, around this, approximately. Give or take. Now, please do not confuse this with the other phrase, give and take. So we have another phrase that's give and take, and that one just means like compromise or something, but that's for another day. Maybe I'll do that video another time, but today's video is give or take. And I know I've heard from other English language learners that these two phrases, they get confused all the time and they really don't know the difference. Literally, it's confusing. One is give or take and the other one is give and take. Today we're going to go over give or take. Give or take just means approximate or approximately. Example, I can say, I live about 20 minutes away from work, give or take. It means give a little bit more minutes, so maybe 23 minutes, maybe 24 minutes away, or take a little bit. So maybe sometimes it takes me 18 minutes or 16 minutes to get to work. I could say, I live about 20 minutes away from work, give or take. So you give some minutes or you take some minutes. It's around that time, approximately 20 minutes away. You can also say Thanksgiving was recent and somebody asked you, hey, how many plates of food did you eat on Thanksgiving? You could say, maybe 3, give or take. Or you could say like more, probably more, like maybe 5, give or take. Define plate, a full plate, a small plate, a big plate, because, I had them all, give or take, all right? So it's like an approximate. You can give a little bit or you can take a little bit. Like maybe I had 3 plates of food, maybe I had 2, maybe I had 4. I don't remember. I was in a food coma, so it was all blur, It's 3, 4, something, approximately, give or take, all right? It just means approximate. So today's story is a really funny one. One of my best friends in high school, she was Japanese, or she is Japanese, not was, she still is to this day. Past tense when I was in high school, okay? So she is Japanese, and when we were in high school, my parents wanted to take a trip to Tennessee. Now, my hometown is in Florida, and my high school was in Florida. So from Florida to Tennessee, it is about 6 or 7 hours, give or take. Depending on traffic, it could be longer, or sometimes it could be shorter. It just really depends. And then sometimes you'll be going around the mountain and you have to go slower because there's ice or there's snow or there's just wild animals. Like I remember one time it took us 3 hours longer to go to Tennessee and we had to pass through the Great Smoky Mountains because of bears. There was like a family of bears crossing the road. And of course, they were just like playing in the road. And of course, everybody was like, oh my God. They want to take pictures and everything. So it slowed down the traffic and then there was more traffic. And then of course you don't want to interfere with the wildlife because it's a national park. So you can't really do anything about it. It's a national park and you can't really touch the wildlife or play with the wildlife because they are protected. So because of that, we just kind of had to let them do their own thing. And it put us 3 hours behind schedule. So even though we said we'll be there in 6 hours, it was definitely give or take. That day, it took us a lot longer. It took us almost 9 hours, because of that. Give or take is just like approximately, all right? So I remember telling my best friend at the time, like, hey, we're going to go to Tennessee. My parents want to know if you want to come because she wasn't going back home that year for Christmas. So she was just going to be here. And my parents were like, hey, invite her, let her spend Christmas with us. So I was like, hey, go to Tennessee with us. And, my parents, they love you like their own child and they'll treat you like their own child. So come to Tennessee and we'll just have fun, over Christmas. That's exactly what we did. And then I remember her getting in the car. She asked me like, how long is the drive? And I'm like, 6, 7 hours, give or take. And she was like, 6 or 7 hours. And I was like, yeah, why? She just couldn't fathom that it was such a long drive. And it's just because like, usually in Asia, in Asian countries, a lot of Asian countries, you can be anywhere within like a few minutes, especially like in Japan, there's like the bullet train. And then a lot of times you just rather fly because, you know, it's a lot of islands and it's just you fly. You can get there quickly. To spend 6 or 7 hours in a car driving somewhere just seems like unfathomable to a lot of people all around the world. But to Americans, we're like, hey, that ain't long at all. Like 6 hours, bet. 6, 7 hours, bet. Sometimes it's like 8 hours. You never know. It's give or take, but like still not that far. Like far to us is like maybe 12 hours. Even that, I'm like, I can do that in a day. So let me rephrase maybe. I think to me personally, now this could be different depending on where you live in America. Because if you live in a big city where everything is super convenient, you might think 6 hours is far. But if you're like me and you live in a random place in Florida, or you grew up in a random place in Florida, 6 hours is not long at all. 12 hours is a little bit long, but anything less than like a day, if I can drive less than a day, doesn't seem that long. Like I'm like, oh, it takes me like 10 hours. That's good. You know, 10 hours, give or take, I'm good. 12 hours, not too bad. Getting more, like up into like the 18 hours, and I'm like, that's a little far. 15 hours, that's a little far. But I would say like 12 hours, a whole day, as in like morning to night, not overnight, of course, but like a whole day, you know, half of a day, I guess you would, if you want to be technical, 24 hours in a day, half of that 12. There's my math. That is a little bit long for me. So when I was telling her, I was like, yeah, 6, 7, 8 hours, give or take. She was like, what? I'm not prepared for this. You know, there wasn't a lot of electronics. We had like Nintendo DSIs, that shows my age, you know, or Game Boy Advances like that we were playing. And then I don't think I had a smartphone at this time. I don't think she did. We didn't have smartphones at this time. We just had regular like flip phones. This was 2008, Christmas 2008. There were smartphones out there. It's just I didn't have one, and neither did she. You know, we still had our flip phones. So she was like, wow, this is a long ride. I wasn't prepared for this, because even going back to Japan in the airplane, it's like, you know, 10, 12 hours for her sometimes. Well, she would fly to, from Florida, it would be like 16 hours, but you would have like transits, and then it would be like another 10 hours, you know, fly from here to someplace else, transit, and then fly to Japan. So she was like, but then I just like sleep and I can get up and I can walk around because it's on a plane, and then there's food and like it's very relaxed. But in a car sitting, driving for 6, 7, 8 hours, give or take, that's a lot. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so, but like I can kind of see where you're coming from. And yeah, maybe it is a lot. At that time, I really didn't understand. I was like, this is not far along at all, because my parents literally drove from Florida to Utah before. And then my sisters lived in Pennsylvania, so we would go to Pennsylvania all the time. And I'm like, dude, this is not far at all. Tennessee is close. But then that Christmas was the Christmas that my parents told me that I was going to go to Japan. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, and then I went to Japan, and then I realized everything is very convenient and easy to get to in Japan. It's very quick. Like I just take the train and boom, you're there. Or you just take the car a couple hours and boom, you're there. A couple hours is like the longest I drove in Japan. It was like from Miyazaki to Mount Kumamoto, and like it was just like a couple hours, maybe even less than that. I don't even remember, because we were just talking the whole time, so the time flew by. It was literally like everything was so close. And then when I lived in Korea, yeah, everything was so close. Like I literally went to Yosu once. So from Seoul or Suwon, where I lived, down to like almost the furthest tip of Korea is Yosu. Even that day, it took us like 8 hours, give or take. My ex-father-in-law, my ex-husband's dad, so my ex-father-in-law, he was apologizing to me because it usually doesn't take that long. He was like, oh my goodness, the traffic is so bad, because it was like Chuseok, which is a Korean holiday. So everybody was traveling, and he was like, the traffic is so bad. I'm so sorry. And he apologized so many times. And I'm like, dude, it's fine. Like, it's not far. Like 8 hours is nothing. And he was like, oh, usually it's like half this. Like, you know, Korea, the whole South Korea peninsula is like pretty much the same size as the whole state of Florida. So like driving through shouldn't take that much time, but because of traffic, it took a lot of time. So he kept on apologizing. He was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, dude, you don't have to apologize, because like 8 hours is nothing in America. Like you tell American, like, oh, like that's only 8 hours away. And we're like, oh yeah, that's pretty close. But if you tell anyone else, probably in the outside world, like, oh yeah, like 8 hours away, you know, we're going on a trip and it's about 8 hour drive. They're probably like, what? Just fly. Why are you driving for 8 hours? That's crazy. That's insane. But for us, we're like, it's not that far. It's pretty close. So give or take just means approximate. And, you know, we went to Tennessee and she had a good time and we drove back. She was like, wow, I can't believe that this is like normal here in America, like driving for this long and having a road trip is like normal. And I was like, girl, you wouldn't even believe, because this is a small road trip. People go cross country sometimes. That takes you days and days. I remember driving through Texas. We drove through Texas for literally a whole entire day. Like, we didn't even sleep. My parents just like rotated drivers. When I woke up, because I was in the back seat asleep, we were still in Texas. And then we went again, and we were still like, it took us like 2 full days to like drive through Texas. And I was like, dang, Texas is a big state. This is a lot of driving. It still wasn't that big of a deal, because like that's like normal for us Americans to just drive everywhere we have to go. But for people of the outside world, everywhere else, I can understand now that I've lived in Asian countries and I can see the convenience and how quick it is to get to everything. I can understand that Americans are a little bit weird. We're a little bit weird for thinking like, oh, 8 hours is close, or 12 hours is not that far away. Yeah, it's a little bit weird, but you know, it's who I am. I will always be this way. If I see a place that I want to go to and it's less than 10 hours, I won't fly unless it's cheaper to fly. I'll just drive because it's convenient. It's easy. It's cheap. Might as well save my money to spend while I'm there and not on the trip, you know, not on the airplane ticket. So I hope you guys have a better understanding of give or take. If you do, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you all in the next video.